experiment around. We had like a creator who created like an ad for us that outperformed all our ads that we created internally by, I think it was like a factor.
Hello everyone, welcome to a new episode of the Influence Factor by the Influencer Marketing Factory. Today with me we have Zeev Farbman, that is the co-founder and CEO of Lightricks. Welcome to the show.
Nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. How are you, first of all? How is your week started?
Started off great. Thank you.
Amazing. And so, usually what I do is that I just start in a couple of minutes for the audience to know who you are. I mean, Lightricks is well known for the apps being, got millions of downloads. But if you just in a couple of minutes tell a bit more about yourself, what did you build so that people can just, have a quick overview. And then I'm going to ask you another little thing on that. And then we go, more in detail and in depth about things that are happening in the industry. But yes, who are you and what did you build?
So Lightricks is a company mostly known for its kind of award-winning apps such as Facetune, VideoLip, PhotoLip. We're basically building tools for creators, mostly on mobile, to express themselves. And my personal background is in computer science. I did my PhD in most of my research was somewhere kind of on the border between computer graphics, image processing, and computer vision. And at some point, I kind of realized that while you're doing academic research, like a bunch of people are going to read your paper, but it's not going to have any kind of broad impact on the world. And also your financial situation is going to be challenging for a while. So with a group of friends, we decided to kind of switch from academia to the industry. We kind of co-founded Lightricks. It was a bootstrap company for a bunch of years, kind of grew on the profits from the apps. At some point, we started kind of to attract venture funding, and I guess that's our story in a nutshell. And
let me also ask you this. So again, you said several apps that many people, especially listening to this podcast, must probably either used or they have seen templates online in tutorials, maybe on TikTok or on YouTube, Instagram, and so on. But let me ask you this, because this is what I ask all the time to entrepreneurs. Because I want to show that, building a business is not an easy thing. Too many videos online out there are taking to this path that it's easy and, takes no time and is completely wrong, I would say. So let me just ask you this before we get, in the topics of today. What is the scrappiest things that you have to do while building a business? Because each entrepreneur, has a different story. What is yours?
Listen, we were a bootstrap company, so kind of think that we have maybe more stories like that than than kind of average kind of startup in tech. But let's kind of remember some early days. So again, imagine that initially no funding at all, meaning that we, as students had, PhD students had to put some money in, and then we were working in a kind of proverbial garage. And even buying an additional table was a huge expense. So that was the kind of considerations in the beginning. And when we initially released Facetune, where we had an initial beta of the app, we kind of wanted to make sure that some journalists cover it, people who are into tech, etc. And obviously no one kind of answered our calls. So one of our co-founders, who was based in New York back then, basically was kind of following a bunch of journalists on Twitter. And these guys sometimes were telling on Twitter where they are at the moment, okay, I'm sitting in this coffee shop in Soho. So he was actually rushing there, trying to kind of stop them face to face and pitch them the app and explain it. So that was from really early days. But even after initial success, we were a bootstrap company for a while. So the team started to grow, so we needed some offices, and we basically couldn't afford anything at all. So we decided to renovate abandoned student dorms in Hebrew use. So that was kind of funny. Imagine buildings abandoned for 20 years that no one uses, and the rent was really dirty cheap, because again it was basically ruined. So we kind of renovated it, and over time again started to create nice gardens around it, and now it's actually a super nice place, but it started kind of really low in terms of real estate.
Wow. Like, there is a lot of physical work even behind a tech company, right? That people people don't realize, right? You think that it's all coding, but it's actually renovating a space, sometimes.
Yeah, initially we had like to water the plants that we kind of put around the building ourselves. Yeah, that was
I love it. Thank you for sharing that. Because again, I want just to give the sense that like, even like, for a multi-million-dollar company, there is, again, there is people behind, right, that have been go through maybe things that people don't even know. So thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that. And you started this like was around 2013, is it correct, Facetune? And so now it's almost like 10 years, right, that I've been in the industry making things. And so let me ask you this, like, how, in your opinion, did the mindset of content creators change it in the past years, right? From maybe going from I do this just for fun, I make content because I love doing that, to going maybe to actually there is an opportunity in terms of monetary value there. So how did you see that changing?
It's like if we circle back 10 years ago, being a social media influencer wasn't even a thing, right? Like go to early days of Facebook, we actually connected to our friends and family, right? Like social media influencer wasn't a thing yet. Over time, and I think like a lot of creators initially, it was really a hobby for them. They created cool content. They built over time a social media following, and for a long time, it was like really kind of just for fun. And I think what happened in the past couple of years is that people start to realize, okay, wait a second, we built a significant following. We are actually the engagement driver of a social media platform. We kind of want to see something out of it. We want to elevate something that started as a hobby to a source of income. Maybe we can make kind of a living out of it. And these days, when we're like doing these questionnaires inside the apps, we're asking people, listen, like, why are you using our apps? Like, do you have like a ton of free alternatives? Most of the users are interested in some kind of monetization, right? It could be like really social media influencers that are interested to create content that kind of stands above the noise. It could be like small businesses, people that who are into e-commerce and trying to sell their merchandise online. Like kind of pure hobbies, people that we had a ton of initiatives, they're just kind of exploring stuff, etc. Like their percentage in the overall kind of split of users indeed kind of lower these days. So again, as when the company, when they think about functionality, about roadmap, etc., more and more we kind of take into account the needs of people who are using tools to create content in order to monetize it something.
And like a lot of the times I think that, especially on media, maybe not now, right? But a few years ago, they were always just talking about the big content creators, right? The ones that were making, like the 1%, making the 90% plus, right? But finally, we're seeing that even the mid class, right, of content creators are actually can make it like a living, can have like stable income, and some of them they are maybe creating like small companies, LLC, right, to treat themselves as not just anymore like just freelancers, but actually as an entity out there. So how are you helping mid-class, right, to achieve their goals and getting more like stables? I also remember that you guys did like a really cool activation. A Bitcoin was there. I remember there was the lounge. So I can see that you're trying to bridge between like not just the big ones, but also mid-class. So what are your initiatives lately to help them?
Like I think if we're kind of taking a step back, I think it's almost the biggest question around creators economy at large. If there is a big kind of middle class and how big it is, right? Because obviously AAA influencer, people who everyone kind of knows, they're obviously making a ton of money. It's kind of less of an issue. But what about people who amassed a following of 10,000, 100,000 followers, right? Like how do they monetize that? And again, in my opinion, it's an open question. Obviously, we hear a lot of success stories, right? People sometimes even like with the niche community, but that's like super engaged for some reason are able to kind of make a decent living out of it. But kind of at large, in my opinion, it's an unresolved question, right? Like I don't think that at the moment, at least that's, again, what we understand from interacting with our users, it's kind of clear to them. Okay, I got to a certain scale of following on social media, kind of what's next? Like what do I do in order to kind of get some traction? And the solution that the platforms provide, okay, let's say you got like some YouTube following, yeah, you can get something out of ads, etc. But typically, in order to make like a living out of it, you need some kind of crazy amount of views, crazy amount of followers. And even that is sometimes challenging, right? Like we're seeing like these tweaks that the platforms are doing in their kind of internal algorithms and how they say how they serve content. And then as a creator, you can be in a situation where, okay, you build some following, but at some point you realize that even people who follow you aren't necessarily seeing your posts, right? So like the whole thing is kind of still in motion. And what we are trying to figure out is what are additional ways that we can help content creators to monetize their content, right? And the big themes here are, I would say, the interaction between brands and content creators, because obviously brands are constantly looking for new opportunities to expand how they do marketing. And there are obviously a ton of money on the table there, right? There are like these estimates that this year, I think it was like the estimate that was done by Forbes, that there are $15 to $20 billion kind of on the table that brands are willing to spend on influencer marketing. So that sounds great, but it's not exactly kind of a resolved issue because there's like a ton of friction in the process that, again, we can discuss. But anyhow, we see a huge opportunity there. There's like a money that's waiting on the brand side. They realize that kind of content creators, it's like a new way to advertise that's kind of more relevant to what's going on at the moment. That's one bucket. Another bucket are kind of opportunities for creators in specific domains to kind of offer their skills, right? So for example, video creation is becoming like this huge thing. Still, most of the people aren't kind of great videographers. So we're trying to figure out how within our apps we can make sure that people who are great at video editing can offer their skills to people who are not doing that, right? So we introduced like this concept of templates. That's something that indeed, as you mentioned, we promoted during VidCon, where people can kind of create cool templates that other people can reuse. So again, if you're an experienced videographer, you're creating like the project, you can share it with the community. We are starting to also to offer to top creators to basically sell their templates to other users. And another opportunity here is that brands can also create their templates. And then content creators can try to collaborate with brands really easily. Instead of like kind of working a ton and creating a specific content, you can take a brand template, add your top kind of content there. If the brand is happy, you're going to get paid, right? So like a ton of friction is removed. Anyhow, like I kind of start rambling here, but yeah, like definitely monetization is a huge issue, and that's what we're trying.
Hey, quick break. This podcast is hosted by the Influencer Marketing Factory. We are an influencer marketing agency that helps brands and companies engage with Gen Z and millennials on social media. We take care of influencer identification, storytelling, creativity, negotiation, contracting, campaign management, ROI analysis, in-depth reporting, content boosting, and much, much more. Are you interested in learning more? You can find us at theinfluencermarketingfactory.com or you can Google the Influencer Marketing Factory. I like the idea of the reusable content mostly because, as you said before, sometimes content creators have to come up with new ideas all the single time. It takes time, right, for them to think about things. But also, like the reusable content could also be an interesting, actually, concept because you can actually scale, right? So you can make money even if you're sleeping, right? That is the concept of multiply yourself, right? So I like the idea of the templates because you can, again, you can be there even if you're not physically there, right? And I think that we see this in the past, and even now with online courses and professionals that are selling, right? Things like that, right? So
exactly. This is like what someone once told me is that as long as you're selling your hours, you're not really an entrepreneur just yet, right?
Yeah.
So you need to figure out exactly like what you mentioned, how you can create something that's kind of easily replicable and that generates something for you even when you're
yeah. I mean, I know that it's a concept that many entrepreneurs, right? Like as you said, if you are still selling your time, right, you don't really have a structure. You don't have an infrastructure there, right? Because it's you. If all the time, what I say all the time, what if you remove yourself from that? Are you still gonna make money? If this answer is no, then it means that you are still right the focus of everything. While you have to detach yourself somehow, right?
This point actually brings me to our discussion about this middle class of content creators. One of the problems that we are seeing more and more these days when we have more and more people who are trying to make a living out of it is actually burnout, right? Like some people create a huge following over time, but at some point they're just like, wait a second, it was fun, but now like working 24/7 in order to maintain what I built already, and that's like really selling your hours on steroids, right? And then they're obviously like re-incentivized, kind of try to figure out like how they can leverage their following to something that's not gonna, kind of ruin every upper corner of their life. So, and we saw things like that, right? Beauty influencers creating their like beauty lines, right? Like really kind of real world cosmetic, etc. But I still don't think there is like a general solution to this problem. So, and that's an interesting problem to tackle.
Yeah. Well, when you said about 24/7, like it reminds me of this meme that I saw online. It was like, I quit my 9 to 5, so now I can work 24/7.
No, but listen, it's exactly that, right? And then you kind of start to realize, oh, I'm like not posting during the weekend, and then I start the week, and then anyhow, yeah, like it's a big problem, and with no solution in sight.
Yeah, I know. But again, we're working on that, right? To get to a solution where everyone can, again, make what they love and try to get that balance between still content creation and also all that everything there. Because sometimes content creators, as you just said now, they started with the idea of creating content because that's what they love. But then you get into a lot of other things that you didn't even know when you started, right? And it's like bureaucracy and set up things and taxes. There is so much more. And then sometimes people are like, I'm not creating content anymore. I'm actually doing all these other things, right, as a priority, and I don't make content anymore.
Exactly. Listen, in the US, I think even like the health insurance is an issue, right? Like some people forget that, right? A lot of things that you need to cover when you're generating some.
Absolutely. No, there is a lot that you don't think when you start making content, and then you're start realizing. So, but I think that slowly, right, we're getting to some sort of even just not like getting like platforms out there, but even just the education side, right, that is missing sometimes, right? Before.
No, listen, that's exactly that. I mean, sometimes people ask us why we kind of collaborate with really big influencers like the Millions family, etc. And part of it is actually education, right? Like both for us to figure out what the best practices are from people who are really successful, and hopefully help our creators to figure out these things as well. And with that, I kind of completely agree. Like we're in a different situation where like a couple of years ago, where everyone kind of trying to figure out, things for themselves. At the moment, yeah, it feels different. At least we kind of, as a community, realize what the problems are and what the best practices are. So yeah, in that sense, it feels like
and how do you see also, because we already discussed about this, right? Like the brand creator collaborations, right? They're changing, and nowadays we know there is this like economic instability, so sometimes marketing is cut up, like some other times there is a decrease in budgets. But I wanted to ask you, how do you still see the power of user-generated content, especially nowadays compared to maybe those, let's call it formal media production where you need like 20, 30 people as a crew. You need legal involved. You need insurance on site and so on. So do you still think there is more opportunity nowadays for UGC, especially again, because now there is all these instabilities. So how do you see it potentially not even change, but how do you see it evolving in the next year?
Still, is first of all, you're completely right. At the moment, it seems that a lot of brands are cutting their kind of marketing spend. So, there is no way out of it. There are going to be maybe less these direct collaborations that we saw in the past, etc. But I think also there is kind of a big opportunity table because brands, think about CMOs of the companies, they're constantly trying to figure out more efficient ways to market their products. And I think influencers and content creators on social media is exactly the outlet that it might need, right? And because this diversification that you're getting, that you're basically kind of outsourcing your marketing to a lot of creatives can be kind of a huge win for everyone. It's going to make the CMOs will still be able to reduce their marketing budgets, but content creators still going to have this nice outlets and going to get paid, right? If you're kind of going to talk to brands and ask them, listen, guys, how much you're willing to pay for a piece of content? So let's say, I don't know, like we're talking about like short video where someone kind of shows the products, right? Like they'll be happy to do an experiment where paying like hundreds, sometimes $1,000 for a piece of content that performs decently well for them, and we'll see like different brands, different KPIs around performance. And when you're going to creator side, getting like hundreds of dollars for like one piece of content that's not overly challenging to create because you're like in this world anyway, that's kind of at least something. And again, we're talking about like middle class here, right? People who are till a certain point kind of not get paid at all. So there I kind of see an actual opportunity even in shrinking economy, because still brands have like a huge budgets and they're looking forward how to basically outsource a whole lot of that, right? And here I think still like the connection to creators completely makes sense.
And so absolutely interesting. I mean, like I can see that, especially one time I did like little calculation, easy one, okay, but like just compare like the Super Bowl between media production and just like paying for that compared to the same thing that you can have with content creators. I know it's two different things, apple and pears, like you cannot really compare, but it's crazy sometimes that you can get, and also it's a different type of like relationship that you have. Like content creator is someone that maybe you either trust, like because they are like or like let's say the influencers are the one that you trust, the content creators are the one that you follow because of their content, and you get like a different relationship, like a different peer relationship, right, between them and a celebrity maybe on TV.
I'll give you like an example of what we had internally as a company, right? Like we obviously have our own creative kind of marketing creative team that creates ads for our apps, but we're also these days are kind of customers of our own internal system that kind of connects brands to creators. And in the first experiment around, we had like a creator who created like an ad for us that outperformed all our ads that we created internally by, I think it was like a factor of like 4 or 5. It's kind of crazy, meaning like, you compare like really apples to apples. You're like taking a piece of content, you start to promote it on your social media accounts. And in this case, we're actually looking for, how many subscribers you're getting kind of down the line from like these two campaigns, right? So there's like really kind of very principled comparison between two campaigns. And yeah, like the ad that we got kind of from the outside, like really outperformed. And also like the volume that the content that you can get is kind of really staggering. So when we started to run like this kind of aggregated calculations, it seems that kind of really makes sense. So we kind of already reached out to a bunch of other brands and kind of trying to expand this concept. Listen, guys, there are like a ton of creators outside that even if you're like a great, kind of creative marketing team, these guys will still be able to kind of expand the range of ideas that you have internally to create something really cool for you. And it like really makes sense to explore. Mm-hmm. So it's again like really obviously kind of new concept, but we're kind of bullish on it.
No, absolutely. Like you might need both, especially depend what type of company you are. But what I say all the time it is that, as you correctly said now, this content creator can bring on the table new things, right, that maybe your team hasn't think of. And the second thing I would say also, they know their audience sometimes even better than the company itself. You know what I mean? Because the company maybe has sometimes like certain layers, right, between you and the customer, even if you do service and everything. But these people, right, content creators and influencers, they talk with their audience every single day. And they have this relationship where they have like unfiltered type of like feedback. And they spend 18 hours of their day, like, on social media. They know what is happening. They know what people want to see and the do's and don'ts, right? So they know better sometimes.
Like in the end of the day, let's say you're kind of a big brand, and even if you have like a super talented people working for you, for them it's again like more of the work environment, right? Like for creators, like somehow like we always see that we're able to create content that looks kind of like, frankly, kind of more legit. And especially if you're like the creators who are kind of only willing to collaborate with kind of brands and campaigns that are exciting to them, that's like really kind of match made in heaven. By the way, that kind of ties back to what we discussed about best practices. I think as a creator, and again, I don't know like if the advice makes sense, but if you have like an opportunity to collaborate with a bunch of different brands, etc., you should always like try and work on things that you're like excited about. Like figure out what brands you think are creating kind of cool products that you can like really stand behind, and try to work with these guys. Like no need to. Because again, like frankly, the content is going to be better.
I agree. Like, don't be afraid to try new things, and sometimes trust the process, right? And trust the people, right? Because they might know better. And so, before we said that, we went from 30, 50, 100 people to make a video, then to a person like in their room, right, with just a camera, and now we're moving from even that. I know this is not new as a concept because it's not new, definitely not new, but let's say that now it's on media, right, and it's like getting to the public. It's AI, right, to generate content. We saw that from just beginning like as text, like text to text, like spinning content. Then we went to text to image. They become like with DALL-E and some others like really popular. And now I saw that Google and others are also working on text to video. So again, it's not a new thing, but it's new for the public, I would say, and it's making a revolution in the space somehow. So I wanted to ask you this: is it something that can actually help content creators? It is something that is gonna I would say like disrupt many jobs out there. Like if I'm thinking about Fiverr or other like websites, right? You go there, it's the gig economy. You can go there and finding something because they're going to spend time on making that. Nowadays, you can just be there and be like, I want like a dog with a, pizza hat on the moon. Right? And then in a second, you're going to get hundreds of variations. So how do you see that? Like, first of all, what do you think about AI to generate content, first of all?
So it's like, I think this like generative AI is the most exciting kind of piece of tech in our industry that we saw in the last 10 years. Frankly, like since we established the company, I can't remember any kind of single piece of tech that was like so disruptive to what we're doing. So from that perspective, yeah, I'm one of the believers. I think that it's going to change how we do things. But in this kind of discussion that these days becomes sometimes like really heated between artists and people who are like pushing this generative kind of AI algorithmic content, actually, like what I think is going to happen is that, yeah, initially there is going to be some disruption. People who are doing certain kind of design gigs on Fiverr, yes, AI is going to take care of it, right? Like, I don't know, let's think already about like use cases. It's kind of clear that something like in the past we have like colorizers, people who are like taking black and white photos and creating, like a colorful photo out of them, restoring old photos, etc. Yes, like with this kind of new tech, you're able to get like really decent quality for free. So it's probably going to impact what we're doing like initially. A lot of gigs on Fiverr and all these like kind of platforms are like around creating like logos or like designs for your business, etc. And yes, these things are going to be disrupted because definitely we're going to soon be at the point where kind of basic vector graphics can be created using the systems. Longer term, I actually think everything is going to be fine because what we typically see is that every time we have some kind of breakthrough in design, like the appetite of consumers for even kind of higher quality design kind of grows, right? Like when let's go to the advent of Photoshop somewhere in the kind of 80s, right? Okay, it was also a disruptive piece of tech. Before that, people worked with physical tools and kind of it was a new concept. People thought that it's going to, significantly disrupting, but obviously designers as a creative class definitely grew since then. I think what will happen over time is that kind of best designers will integrate AI inside their flows. And also, already if you're kind of scouting all these like cutting edge communities of, like DALL-E and Stable Diffusion on like Discord and Reddit, etc., you already see like some people who are like really artists and designers were able to take this kind of piece of tech and build a ton on top of it. And actually what we are excited at the moment as a tool makers to do kind of just that. Okay, AI is cool. It's definitely not going to solve all the design problems, but if you kind of package right, if you create like the right tools around it, it can make designers and content creators kind of amazingly more kind of efficient. So I'm aware of a lot of the heated discussion that we're seeing online around it, but kind of a long-term thing. They're gonna just gonna be more appetite around design and content creation. Again, like think about metaverse as a concept. Like forget about like what maybe Meta are trying at the moment to do with it. Like in order to create the kind of live, kind of vibrant virtual worlds, you need to create like a crazy amount of content, right? And there, like for example, I really see how AI can be a game changer. Where, for example, like think about it in indie studio, right? Like these guys don't have like a crazy budget to create all kind of content by themselves these days. AI there can be like super helpful. Like, you're going to create some basic kind of pieces, and the AI is going to fill all the blanks for you. So like I'm actually really bullish on this direction. I think in the long term, both the designers and consumers and content creators will be benefit from this.
And I do agree. I mean, like it's innovation. It's been always be there, right? What was that saying? Like if the one about like going from horses to cars, like we would have like faster horses or that.
Right? Exactly. Before that, like if you ask the kind of customers, who's gonna ask for
right. I mean, like again, like all the time, right? People are like a bit afraid of that, like, oh, what about these type of jobs and so on. But again, I've always been there, right? And I do agree that can potentially help. Will not necessarily in the first years solve everything, because you still need the potentially like a human being like behind that to do things. But still, we have seen a lot of things that actually became like popular. We have automation. From easy things like Google Sheets with formulas and everything, like, and before you had to do like by hand, and maybe those people that were doing by hand when they saw like Google like Excel or Google Sheet coming out were like, I might have to update my resume, right? But that's quite common. So do you have anything else on the AI that maybe it's you said you are bullish on that? So is there anything else that you think people are not talking about, but that you think might be something either insightful to share or something that maybe you noticed lately?
I kind of feel that there's always like this kind of connection between kind of design, creativity, and marketing, and sometimes like creative types don't like to acknowledge it. But if you look, like Adobe is a company, right? Like they started with kind of content creation app, they have kind of creative cloud, but at some point they obviously kind of started to invest a ton in marketing cloud. So there is like a connection between assets and marketing, etc. And I think AI can like really change like how marketing is done, right? Because when we kind of look at the kind of products that are emerging at the moment, like things like Justers and Copy.ai, etc., it seems that we will be able to like really streamline marketing, right? We'll be able to like as a kind of creative type, you will be able to start with the idea, and the AI will help you to basically to do everything, right? Like to flesh it out into kind of a copy and figure out like let's say if you want to run a campaign, what's kind of how the campaign should be, kind of help you with the assets, etc. So I think it's going to have like kind of a really serious impact on how marketing is done. And it's going to kind of take a while to figure out all the implications, right? Like, and it obviously goes beyond marketing. I don't know if like you saw like all these like funny threads on Twitter where kind of senators realized that an intern like wrote a speech for them using like GPT-3, right? That's kind of funny. It kind of begs the question why like we need the senators and interns at all. If like I can just like spout some stuff and
but again, like also regulation is going to be interesting, as you said. Like we saw that before with like plagiarism in school, because they were like this way to spin text, and now like it's going to be the same. And this is going to be like faster. Regulation is going to be like slower as usual. They're always going to be like we saw that with influencer marketing, with everything. Like these things go super fast. Every day there is a new app, new thing, but then regulations are just slower because it's the type of like where they are. So it's going to be interesting to see what happened there. But before we go to final Q&A, there is going to be a bit more about you, so that the person behind the company. But it's going to be super quick. But anything else that I either like asking you today, or anything else that you want to maybe go more in depth on today's conversation?
Like, at least kind of from kind of company perspective, the things that we're kind of excited the most at the moment are to figure out how to give creators the opportunities to monetize. We already kind of covered branded templates and paid templates, and obviously AI. Like maybe like one kind of conceptual idea how we think about AI internally is that we feel that AI, first of all, can help take like existing tools that we had and elevate their visual quality. It obviously also lends itself to completely new tools. And there are like new products to be built kind of on top of the AI. And again, like at the moment, I just like feel that we're starting to scratch the surface of what's possible there. But yeah, anyhow, like these two things are kind of, yeah, that's
I mean,
really
especially after doing
these
this like for 10 years, you need all the time maybe something that excites you, right? Like something, what is next? What is next, right? That you wake up in the morning.
For sure, like it's actually exactly that. I kind of like I don't remember myself kind of coming before kind of my usual time to office in order to kind of catch some time to do some kind of programming myself to explore these ideas. Like that didn't happen for a long time, but now, yeah, like with this AI box.
I'm glad to hear that. So thanks really AI also to give not just like new things happening there, but for entrepreneurs to have the energy, right? But jokes apart. So thank you so much for joining me today. It was such a pleasure to learn from you about what you built. Again, congratulations on what you built. It's been, imagine, such a journey, right, so far.
Thank you for inviting me.
And good of luck, especially with AI, that I know that you're super passionate about it. So I will follow, right, what Lightricks is going to create in that, because I'm pretty sure you're going to create something super cool. And for everyone that is listening today, we had great, guests in the past. We had Zeev today that shared with us a lot of insightful things. And in the future, we're going to have more. So if you're listening today and you haven't subscribed yet, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, we are everywhere, so you can do that. So we're gonna, update on the new episode. Again, this was the Influence Factor by the Influence Marketing Factory. Thank you so much, and I'm gonna see you in the next episode.